Welcome back to the Hot Death Horror Podcast for the week. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining. This week I have a really super cool guest that I'm very excited to have on the show. He reached out to me on social media because of a post that I had made, and definitely wasn't something that I was expecting. Someone of his caliber to reach out and want to come on my silly little podcast, but I am honored to have him here. As you can see by the background, we are going to be having on Mr. Dan Bowhers of Blue Hour, the disappearance of Nick Brandreth fame, as well as he's got over 20 years of visual effects experience. Just to name a few here, did some visual effects work on Smile, on Deepwater, and the Hannibal TV series. Again, just to name a few. He's got quite a lengthy list of credits, so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on the man himself. Dan, how are you?
I'm good, man. How you doing, Dustin?
I'm doing well, sir. Thank you for coming on my show here. I appreciate it.
It's it's good to be here. It's funny, the VFX nerd in me is I'm stuck on the backpack. It's right behind you because I assume it's the edge of your green screen.
Like right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can see it's actually a pair of shorts, but yeah, you can see how it kind of, I don't know, man. I can't seem to get the lighting right for this green screen to, make everything perfect. Like I've got really bright lights turned all the way down right now. If I turn them up, it makes everything just go wonky.
So. Yeah, it's because they're in front of you.
Oh, is that why?
They're putting you in the green screen.
Okay, so I should put them behind the green screen is what you're saying.
Yeah, and just create as much separation. That's all it is. Doesn't matter if it's green or whatever color. Just the more difference, like the less that it's polluting everything. Like since it's chattering on your shorts, I can see that is getting a lot of green. Sorry, I shouldn't. Yeah. But yeah, there's a.
No, that's okay, man. That's very, very welcome feedback. I appreciate that because that's definitely something that I need to look into because it drives me crazy. Like I can see it, all over my desk at certain places, and it drives me nuts.
That's the spill. So like you're quite close to your green screen, so it's polluting everything around it. And when you're keying that out, it's pulling, and that's what you're seeing, that chatter. But if you were further away from it, it would have better success. And if the lights were behind you, just lighting that, so you had more separation as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. I'm going to do that for the next episode for sure. Because, yeah, see, as you can tell, there's my inexperience showing through right there. Like, I don't know how to set these lights up yet. I spent all this money on these things. I don't even know how to use them.
No, that's all good, man. It's like you just learn by fucking up. Oh, sorry.
Yep, go ahead. Drop the fuck bomb all you want.
I don't want to. It's a force of habit, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. No, I unfortunately have a little bit of a potty mouth myself sometimes on the podcast and just in general. So it's totally okay.
All right.
So, yeah, again, thank you. Really. I'm honored to have you here. It was really cool of you to say that, that you'd want to come on the show. I was a fan of yours before we met. I knew that you had done some visual effects stuff because I checked out your IMDb because I watched Blue Hour, cool. And I'd seen you kind of posting. We belong to a couple of the same groups on Facebook, and I had seen you post some things before, and so I was like, let me check this guy out and see what he's done, and maybe I can get some tips and advice from him. And then I saw your lengthy list of credits, and I was like, nope, he ain't gonna talk to me. So just didn't even do it.
You always want the opportunity to talk about movies. Like that's kind of all I do talk about. That or I guess cats, but
you're a cat person, huh?
Hell yeah, I'm a cat person, man. I think my first word, like when I was a baby, was cat. I think that was before I said mom or dad. I wanted a cat.
All right, I like cats. I do. My kids are slightly allergic, so we can't really, mess with them too much. And my wife is not a big fan. I can't say I'm the hugest cat person, but there's people that love cats and there's people that hate cats. Like I'm kind of in the middle. I can deal with cats. They're not my first pet of choice, but if somebody in the house said, let's get a cat, I would probably, okay, let's get a cat.
They're cool, man. They serve a purpose too, like they keep animals away, and
Mhm.
They're adorable.
They are cool. I will say that cats are really cool. Um, and when you watch them, like you said, hunting mammals and things, like you can watch them kind of stalking.
Mhm.
They're just kind of creeping. It's like, oh, there's that animalistic nature in there that just wants to get out and hunt and kill.
Yeah, and cats are like the appropriate level of enthusiasm I want out of an animal, like to have towards me. Nick Brandreth has got these Aussie Shepherds, and they're cool. I mean, I've got no problem with dogs, but I'm not that excited to see me in the morning. So when the dogs are acting like that, it's just, there's something fishy. I don't trust dogs.
Agreed. Oh, my son wants a pug.
Oh, they're cool. Those are nice.
Yeah. I hear they're quite expensive though because they got that
Hmm.
thing and they get breathing problems and stuff. So I don't know if I want to deal with that kind of extra commitment in my life right now. I've got enough kids running around here. I don't think we need another. We have one dog. I don't think we need another one that is pretty much guaranteed to get health problems.
Right. Fair
So
enough.
yeah. Um, but yeah, man. We'll just start talking about Blue Hour because I watched it probably 3-4 months ago, maybe I think is when I first watched it. I actually did a rewatch the other night because I kind of wanted to freshen up since you're
Oh,
coming on
cool.
the show. I wanted to refresh my memory, and it's a good movie. So like I was like, hey, I'll rewatch this anytime because it's a trip, man. I'm not going to give any spoilers away for folks that haven't seen it, but it you're watching it because at first I was like, "Oh, this found footage or is this not found footage? What is this?" And then I was like, "Okay, it's a mockumentary. I love mockumentaries, and it's kind of in that style. Correct
Mhm.
me if I'm wrong, but to me that's kind of what it felt like. And then I'm watching it, and I mean I'm hooked. I'm just kind of like And that's I was telling you the other night. I was watching it in bed and I fell asleep, but
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah. Well, it was just because it's so late. I was like, I'm an idiot. I don't know why I do that. I get in bed, get all comfortable, turn on a movie, and it's like I'm out. So,
Hey, some people
but
do that, man. Our producer, the guy who actually plays Luke, like the cameraman in the film, that I don't know how he does it, but Mike Hedford is like always falling asleep to movies, and I just don't. I can't do that. Once I like lock into watching something, my brain is on. Like I need to fall asleep with a book in my hand. It's just
oh yeah,
the glowing or something. It does like kind of jack me up.
it,
Screams.
it does at times. Yeah, there's certain times where I'll turn it on, but if it's that like for my regular 9 to 5 gig, I get up pretty early in the morning, so I usually tend to go to bed kind of early. So on the weekends, if I stay up late, it's like if I see midnight, it doesn't matter what's on. Like I'm going out. So, um, but yeah, man, I was hooked the first time I watched it. I actually, be honest with you, the first time I watched it, I didn't really know I didn't know what I was watching. You know what I mean? Like it was one of those things where people were talking about it. I'd seen it posted in the groups, and I'm like, all right, I'll check this out. And I was paying attention, but I was kind of sidetracked, but I enjoyed it. But I was like, all right, I'm gonna watch this thing again. Then I fell asleep, watched it the next day. Technically 3 times, but it was half and half. But it it's so weird because when the first half you're watching it, and then it just turns left
Hmm.
you know
Yeah.
I don't know what you're comfortable with me mentioning. Like I said, I don't want to give away any spoilers or anything, but the direction you took on that was, I'll say, original. It was very, very original. It's not something that I had ever seen really mentioned in found footage mockumentary, or really, I mean, a lot of movies in particular. I mean, there's a few on the subject matter, but what kind of inspired you to take it that route?
Yeah, man. I mean, I've said this before. The Murder on Middle Beach is a documentary series on HBO or Max or whatever they're calling themselves this year.
Hmm.
And I enjoyed it. I think it's actually a well-made doc series, and I don't mean to be putting them on blast when I say this, but it does feel inauthentic at times, or not objective, I guess might be the word I'm looking for. Not inauthentic. That's not a cool thing to say about whatever they were making, but it doesn't feel objective. And I started watching these docs, and I'm trying to think to myself, like, they are putting themselves in such dangerous situations, and it doesn't feel like a documentary. It feels it feels quite strange. It feels like a narrative movie. So then I started thinking, like, well, what's the furthest you could push that and keep an audience paying attention, and make them like, when could you trick people, I guess. And I hate to say that, trick people, because it's not, we weren't making like a stunt film. We made a movie that I think has a fair amount of heart. But I was interested in that difference of like reality and narrative, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, you pulled it off very well. I have to say, because the first, like I said, the first time I watched it, I was like, wait, what happened? Because I think I missed a couple of minutes of it or something, and then it got to, I'll just call it the scene, kind of towards the end there, got to the scene, and I was like, wait, what did I miss? What is this doing now? So I I had to get myself fully immersed, this last time I watched it because I really wanted to pay attention and find out what I had missed the first time. So, like, rewatch value, in my opinion, of your movie is, I mean, 9 out of 10.
Cool.
For sure. It's because I think I I don't know, I tend to do that even with movies that I'm locked in on, not falling asleep. I miss things, and I think there's I don't want to say there's a lot to miss in your movie if you're not paying attention, but I mean, would you say that's a fair assumption? Like, it's definitely a movie that you kind of want to get involved in because if you walk away for a few minutes, it could change the whole story for you.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a matter of intent, I think. I make things pretty purposefully, and I don't want to make a movie that you just got on in the background. If we were doing that, we could make a podcast. Not disrespecting this podcast, but you could do it with a different form.
Sure.
I want to make a movie that's pretty dense. I want to watch movies that are dense, and also I don't want to ever make a film that I wouldn't watch myself or that wouldn't challenge my own things that I'm bored by in movies. So we swung pretty hard. We definitely did some things I would probably do differently, 2 years later, writing 5, 6 features later. But I'm pretty content with it, I think, because I'd rather make something dense and crazy, and that pretty much everyone has said it takes big, bold swings, whether you like it or not. I mean, some people hate the movie. It doesn't, it's a demanding film. If you go in expecting a traditional found footage movie, you're going to be upset. But
Right.
if you're open minded enough and you're willing to take a really strange ride, it's not like other films. And I'd rather be known for that than another clone.
Like, absolutely, man. And I definitely applaud you for taking that courageous swing, because a lot of found footage in particular, and this isn't me trashing found footage movies because it's my favorite subgenre of horror, but as you well know, there's a lot of them that are just it's kind of a repeat of the last, and it's a lot of cliches, kind of just the same thing over and over again. So very, very welcome surprise, to sit and watch your movie and have it take that left turn and really have it kind of knock you back. Like, wait a minute, I don't understand what I missed, So, and I love that to me, when I watch a movie and I go, wait a minute, what, I got to rewind it, I love having to do that. Some people it frustrates. Like, I love it. I'll sit there and go back and forth on a movie because I have to know. It's not fun to get to the end of a movie and go, I didn't get it. Like, I want to get it. So that's why I made sure I paid full attention to what you did, because it's admirable. It really is that you did take such a courageous swing on that, and I mean, knocked it out of the park, in my opinion. It wasn't just it wasn't just a swing, man. Like, you knocked it out of the park. Really, I think it's a great movie. It was highly entertaining, very original. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about it. I know that I've read a lot of really good reviews about it. So yeah, congratulations to you on that one, sir. Was it? Was it your? I was reading through your IMDb. Was this your first directorial debut?
No, we've so Nick Brandreth and I have been making films together for at least almost the entire time I've been in visual effects. I've worked with Nick in some capacity.
Okay.
We've made our first like big short together was called 10-13-12, and we made that just before the pandemic.
Okay.
That short did great for us because we've had a plan for a number of years now where we were going to kind of make 2 or 3 short films in the subject matter that we're really interested in, which is sort of blurring, I would say, cosmic horror, folk horror, and with a real bent on cinematography. I think cinematography is something that we really do well with, and that's Nick's photo background and my visual effects background have merged really nicely together. And then we factored in this new dude, Mike Hedford from Toronto, who I've known also before I was in VFX. Oddly, we all rode mountain bikes at a very high level, like
Okay.
doing flips and stuff. I've met them. I met these dudes at skate parks, and we've stayed together making movies. And it's just so weird to have 3 people who have all we spent like our entire lives on bicycles, and now we're spending our entire adult lives behind cameras, and it's been great. And I think I've done at least 5 or 6 short films with Hedford, a number of music videos, the odd commercial every now and then that I end up directing. But this was the first like thing I really wrote and put time in and started to like take seriously the things I'd wanted to do, which is to
Sure.
write and direct and to a lesser extent produce films.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. So I kind of misread then a little bit. My apologies, but yeah, I it was yeah, 10-13-12. That's right, because I was gonna watch that the other day, and then I ended up having to go do a bunch of stuff. And I
If you
didn't
think
get to.
Blue Hour is weird, when I make a short film and there's no financial risk, it is like that's like an acid fever dream. Like that movie is it actually has like a script, but you would never know.
Okay. Well, and I'm glad you mentioned like cosmic horror. I love cosmic horror.
Oh shit,
That
cool.
Yeah, I really do. I like cosmic horror. It's one of the debates I've gotten into people with about the Outwaters. You
Oh,
know,
okay.
I think it's kind of cosmic horror, ish. But there's a lot of different interpretations of that movie. But I like that movie as well. And that just yeah. What's the other one? I don't know. I can't remember the other one now. But I do like cosmic horror, and so when you say an acid fever dream, like I'm in. So I'll more than likely be watching that tonight now because yeah, it's the weirder the better, man. Like because there's just not enough of it. Like I said, there's a lot of you know copies of
Mhm.
things, and myself included, just starting out making films, a year ago. Like I made an alien film and I think I did some original things in there, but for the most part, I kind of just followed, found footage rules and, made a movie. But I, that's, that's something that interests me is going very weird. That's why I like the work of Quentin Tarantino and I like Kevin Smith and all those directors that just do crazy, weird things that I'm in, all the way. So another big applause to you for, you know, wanting to just be known for just making what you want to make. You're not just like I'm just going to collect a paycheck. I'm going to cash this one in. Like you are.
Well, I do that too.
Well, I'm
To
sure.
be clear, I am available for money.
I'm. Yeah, I would never turn down money. I like money,
It's
but
cosmic horror is tough, right? I mean, I've heard I've actually been told by a number of. I mean, I'm very fortunate in that Blue Hour has had a decent reception and got a great premiere. Like, if we didn't premiere at Panic Fest, the entire situation would have been different.
Mhm.
That was like game changing. Our movie literally played, and then it was like Abruptio, which is this wild movie with like life size puppets, and then Evil Dead Rise. Like, that's fucking crazy
Mhm.
that this little mock we've been calling it a faux doc, or we were for a long time we were calling it a true crime film from another dimension. Like, but we spent less on sandwiches than Evil Dead Rise spent on their production. Like, or they spend more. I said that completely backwards. They spent more on
They
sandwiches than all of Blue Hour cost, without question. And Evil Dead Rise is dope. I mean, that movie was fun as hell. Like, that was a nice new direction for the franchise. It's cool that they got it out of a cabin. I know it upset a lot of people, but you know, as a New Yorker, I'm like, yeah, let's see some concrete, man.
right. That was a very good movie. I liked it. It
I
gets a
like the
lot of
mom
hate.
character. I thought she did a hell of a job. I thought that was one of like the better horror performances I've seen. It was just
Hmm.
specifically the mom. There are issues that I have with the film. Don't get me wrong. It's not my
Right.
favorite Evil Dead movie by a long shot, but I had, you know, I enjoyed watching it. Cheese grater notwithstanding, that shit was gross.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I liked it. I thought it was great. You know, I think it's just kind of a common thing now for people to. It's almost like people want to hate movies.
Oh yeah,
You know, and I've had this discussion before with Dylan Brown, actually, who I think you're familiar with as well. But
I know that name. Yeah.
yep, when they remake something, people lose their ever loving minds. And now, you know, I don't know if you're a fan of remakes or not. I am. 'Cause, I mean, almost everything is a remake anyway. If you really think about it, I mean, the classics, you know, The Thing, that's a remake of something
Mhm.
that was made before. You know, so I think it's just kind of ingrained in certain people. I'm not going to say everybody because that's not true, but there's certain people I think that they just want to hate things,
Oh yeah.
you know. And not saying Evil Dead Rise was a remake because it obviously wasn't, but it, like The Exorcist, the new Exorcist Believer, you know, I enjoyed that movie a lot. And I mean, people lose their minds over that. And again, it's not a remake, but people are kind of treating it as such. So that was kind of my next question: is how do you feel about remakes?
I'm cool with remakes. I mean, I would prefer if like bad movies got remade. Personally, I think that, you know, if there's a good idea that was just executed poorly, I'd rather see it get fresh legs than I would. Like, let's be honest, like The Exorcist is great, and I don't know that I've really enjoyed any Exorcist movie beyond The Exorcist.
Right.
I've seen a lot of them. They'll grab my attention. I didn't have a terrible time watching Believer. I thought that was an okay movie. I think people got kind of upset for no reason, or you know, outrage culture just gets pushed on your like social media algorithms, and then that's what you're exposed to. Because that, I bet a lot of people love that movie though. That said, would I rather see like I'm trying to think of a movie that really kind of had like production issues that I would love to see with fresh legs. Nothing's really coming to mind. I guess I'm just kind of an idiot, but um, maybe even a lesser known movie like Fulci's The Beyond. I don't know if I want to see a remake of that, but that's a cool idea. There's a lot of
Right.
great stuff in it. It definitely feels a little schlocky at times today, and all the right reasons. Maybe that it's a bad example, but that's kind of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. No, it's not a bad example at all. Which is another kind of, I guess, kind of fun question. It's not really meant to be taken too seriously, so take it with a grain of salt. But it's something I like to ask. If you were given, you know, just a crazy multi-million-dollar budget
Hmm.
and one A-list actor to do a remake, who would the actor be, and what would you remake?
Remake or like requel?
I'll let you pick.
Hmm. Well, I think the actor would have to be Ethan Hawke. If I said anyone else, I feel like my wife would be upset. And he does seem just infinitely flexible. He could do so much, and he's had some great genre work. And I'm a fan. Every time I see Ethan Hawke, I mean, I'm stoked.
Yeah.
In terms of the film, like the one that I'd want to see or the one I'd want to make.
You know, that's a good question. Let's go both. You know, which one would you want to see, and which one would you want to? And if it's a franchise, even like a continuation, like the next Halloween or Friday, or you know, whatever. You know, it can even be that if you want. It doesn't have to be a complete remake, but
I'll just say I would be interested in a Lost Boys prequel set in 1950s with like motorcycle jackets, that kind of greasers thing would be really interesting.
okay,
I think
I
that
would
would be
watch that
cool to get.
movie.
That would have like enough in line with the 80s version too, because you know they had the motos and like
Mhm.
different kind of culture, but I think you could take it elsewhere. Or you could even do it right in Santa Barbara or wherever. I think it's actually a fictional town in Lost Boys. But I think that'd be
Yeah.
pretty cool. I mean, Ethan Hawke with a motorcycle as a vampire. I mean, that idea should get stolen.
I would watch that movie. I'm glad you said Ethan Hawke, man. Like, really, that.
I feel like he's one of the few actors. There's a lot of actors that seem like they're models or they seem like they're doing other things. I feel like he's one of the ones that's like, really reading like Stanislavski and stuff. I think he's really, I'm sure there's others. There can't just be Ethan Hawke, but also the Tiny Voice boys and I were joking around about Adam Driver and sort of like a poltergeist dad role. Like he's approaching that age and how
Okay, yeah.
awesome that would, not poltergeist itself, like leave well enough alone. There's been plenty of that. And also I'd be remiss not to mention if I could do anything, like personally, like take the reins on something, we're taking a look at Phantasm.
Okay.
I love Phantasm. I watch Phantasm multiple times a year.
Oh, okay.
I think it's one of the best horror movies ever made. I think it's so original and batshit and of an era that I enjoy, and just fucking crazy. And you probably could see a lot of Phantasm DNA in Blue Hour if you're like really a fan of it, of either film.
Uh-huh. So Phantasm, I haven't seen that in.
What are you doing talking to me? Go watch Phantasm.
I know. I'm going to now.
I
But
really, yes, watch Phantasm.
I know I've seen it. That's the one like with the little ball, right?
Mm-hmm. The
Yeah.
Sentinel.
Okay, the Sentinel. Okay, yeah. I was young. See, I had uncles that exposed me to horror at a very young age. That's what got me into liking horror, is being babysat by my uncles and them turning on Nightmare on Elm Street and literally making me watch it. So
Awesome.
it's it was. I mean, it was cool. Um, and I remember, but I mean, I was probably 8 or 9 years old the last time I saw that movie. So I feel kind of terrible as a horror fan, not having a recent watch of Phantasm, because you're right, it's a classic. It's very well known, so I
It's
need to
like
go back and rewatch it.
it's under respected, and I think it's because it's so fucking strange. I mean,
Hmm.
there's stuff in it that, as a fan of it, I'm still like. I mean, I've seen that movie too many times. It's probably disturbing, but it sounds awesome. It's got one of the best horror scores, and it's not just like everyone's like synth. Like it's like operatic. It
Hmm.
feels bigger and it feels rich, and like there's heart at it. Like so much horror is like, I'm not trying to shit on any film in particular, but when Friday the 13th started killing people for fun and you were getting joy out of the kills as opposed to like connecting with it in terms of like your empathy, that's a problem. And then there's been plenty of examples of that since. I mean, I don't know. I'm not into that for sure. I think that you should be really sad when your characters you like die. Like that impacts me a lot more than watching someone I don't get murked.
Sure. Okay. Well, I mean, if there was no fans of Phantasm before, there are now, I'm sure, just because of your passion for it. Like,
Sorry, I'm so obsessed with Phantasm. It's just the best.
don't be sorry, man. That's you're a horror fan, and you've got your movie, and now we know it's Phantasm. So
Yeah,
that's badass, and it's like I said, it's good. It literally is making me want to rewatch it now. So I really probably will. I'll probably go watch Phantasm tonight.
it got a
There's
beautiful remaster. J.J. Abrams took like care of like a full. They scanned the 35 millimeter film. They didn't like go changing anything, just like a simple DI adjustments, and then adjusted like audio and remixed it, and it looks great.
okay.
Probably looks like a totally different movie from when you watched it on VHS.
I'm sure. Yeah. I don't even know if it might have been on VHS, but I want to say it was probably just, it was on like HBO or something, because I remember that was like the only movie channel that we had. We
Mhm.
had the old turn knob TVs, but it's like somehow we had HBO. It was probably illegal out of a black box or something, knowing, my uncles, but
Tight.
right. But I do remember having HBO, because I remember that intro, that
Mhm.
like the flying over the model city, and then the HBO coming and then spins around in the O, and the music, it's takes me back. I'm an 80s kid. 80s horror is probably some of my favorite type of
Oh,
horror.
cool.
So, and Phantasm, there's a lot of those though, right? Like, are they all good, or are you pretty much partial to part one?
There's 5 of them. I don't even know if I've seen them all, to be honest.
Okay.
I know I've seen at least the first 3, and then I might have just sat through the other 2 once, if that. But I love that first one, and it's complete. It doesn't just like, yeah, it's cool if there's sequels and there's a universe and stuff, but I would love to I'd love to get into that tall man story. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I just would love to watch it.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's another movie on the consideration list for the big budget and Ethan Hawke. Do a Phantasm.
Maybe he likes it. Maybe we can make that
Maybe,
happen.
maybe. I mean, he does very well in horror. I mean, he's great all around. I mean, he's I'm not necessarily going to say he's a chameleon actor, like a Johnny Depp or something, but I mean, he does well in everything. And
I would suggest that he's a far better actor than Johnny Depp.
yeah, for sure. He is a better actor than Johnny Depp. That's not that I don't like Johnny Depp, but yes, he is a far better actor than Johnny Depp.
I thought the Black Phone was fantastic. I thought that was like a very original, fun take on like kind of a modern slasher. Like I thought that was dope.
It was, and I mean, it was creepy because number one, it involved kids.
Mm-hmm.
So that automatically, as we were talking about that on a show I did last night, is if it involves hurting kids, like it automatically takes it kind of way up to the top of the creep factor scale.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I thought it was great too. He nailed that role. So I'd be excited to see a sequel of that. I hear
It's
there's
coming.
talk, yeah. So I'd be excited to see that because I thought he did very well in that. And um, I've I've been an Ethan Hawke fan all the way back to Explorers.
Mm-hmm.
When he was in that movie as a kid. So, yeah, I'm with you on the Ethan Hawke thing, man. He's great.
But yeah, it's fucked up to not to say like truthfully, like the next movies that I'm gonna make are gonna involve the same people that were in Blue Hour. Morgan and Mike. They are the real answer to that. Like it's cool to say Ethan Hawke or whatever, but like realistically, I like working with Morgan and Mike.
Uh-huh.
Morgan was a fucking trooper. She like our tiny little dinky movie got her nominated for Best Actress at Panic. Like that's crazy. That's a
Yeah.
testament to how good she is, and it's like kind of fucked up to then be like, well, if I have money, I wouldn't work with my old college roommate. Like that's not cool.
Right.
I
Yeah.
guess I'm
No,
kind
yeah, it's always remember where you came from. That's a rule that I have for sure. And it's yeah, I admire that as well because yeah, it'd be great to have Ethan Hawke in the movie, but of course you want to take your homies with you,
yeah.
always.
I mean, it's
So,
funny, like Mike Kowalski, who plays Chris Donovan. Like I've known him since college, and I actually the first time he ever did acting was for one of my student films, which
oh,
I mean, like we're talking 2002 ish at that point. Like this was a long time ago. We were shooting on mini DV, making really weird crime movies. It was awesome.
yeah. That was actually I know we're going a little bit over a half hour. You good on time? And
Yeah, man. Whatever you need, I'm good. I'm
okay,
just
I won't take it too much longer, but I did want to ask you too because you had mentioned college.
I there is a college.
There's a college. Um, is that kind of basically is that what you wanted to do in college? Is that what got you interested in making movies, visual effects, things like that?
I can remember the first time I like really shot a movie was I was probably in like third grade, playing with Legos, doing stop motion. Uh,
Okay,
I definitely was like a fan of Gumby when I was a kid,
Gumby.
and how those things came to life just sort of made sense to me. Like understanding like frame by frame, like drawing in
Mhm.
a sketchbook or whatever. Um, so I've wanted to make movies for a long time, and I went to college and I studied both film theory. We didn't really have a lot of production classes. We took like you'd make like a documentary, you'd maybe make a music video, and you'd make a short. And my friends and I were all like pretty bored by the film theory stuff. Like you can only talk about something so much. You want to go do it. And there's definitely applications for film theory and studying film academically. It's just in the end, it wasn't what I wanted to do. So I actually studied film theory and political science with like a international relations kind of concentration. So I kind of did a lot academically. I'm kind of a nerd, I guess.
Being a nerd is probably one of my favorite things. Like I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, be a nerd. Like, please be a nerd. Like, grow up and be a nerd because it's fun. Like,
I felt from a very early age that making a movie would be political, and it was important to have like some other thing. Like if your entire life is just like I guess Tarantino's the exception, right? Like his entire world was movies, and he's gone on to make movies a certain way. I love
mhm,
his films, but
yep,
I thought it was important for me to have something else because I don't think I'm talented enough as like a filmmaker. I need perspective. That's ends up being what grounds it all is having a take on something, not just the coolest. Like Tarantino is able to get by on that because he is making films that are designed to be cool by someone who understands what it is to be cool. So I have to have everyone has to have their own thing.
right.
So I guess mine is throwing a bunch of dense shit at you, and you have to like sit through it.
You're definitely a talented enough filmmaker, sir. I mean that.
But there's levels. Like let's be
Yeah,
realistic.
yeah.
There are levels.
There's levels.
I'm
Yeah,
fortunate that I have awesome collaborators, man. I mean, Mike Brandreth, Mike Hedford. I'm saying Brandreth because I'm looking at the name right over Morgan's head behind you. It's really tripping me out. Mike Hedford is like a great DP, and he thinks of things that I never think of. He's also an editor. You know, it's so like that's a powerful one too, right there to have as your team. You know, having someone who can help with the post and understands that side and shoots. So he understands how to get coverage. He understands how to shoot things quick and effective because he knows what we're going to need in the edit. That's awesome. Like that makes my life a lot easier. You know,
yeah,
Nick Brandreth is like one of the he's just an amazing photographer and understands lighting, art direction, and truthfully, he was the one that really got me into horror. You know, I think Nick's always had sort of the mind, especially for folk horror and understanding just sort of really weird things and looking at it like a shadow and be like, well, wouldn't that be creepy if XYZ happens through the shadow or how this moves this way? And he just gets it. He gets being creepy, which I love.
yeah. So certain people have that ability, and I don't think I have it yet, but I'm working on it. That's a very that's a hard skill to acquire. Is learning how to make something just super creepy. And like you said, there's people that have it and there's people that don't. So
And it's different too, right? Like there's horror films where there's lots of scares and stuff like that, and that's not really what we do. We kind of
right,
like to ride your anxiety for 90 minutes or whatever and kind of really grate on you, make you feel kind of anxious and unsettled. Like I'd kind of rather have that happen. Like a scare is great. I love being scared when I watch a movie, but that said, I'm more interested in sort of leaving you unnerved
yeah,
long term.
that's and it shows because you did it very well in this movie. And I love that. That's I agree with you. That's my favorite feeling while watching a scary movie is if you're just kind of constantly sitting there and you're like, why are my palms sweaty? You know, like it. I love that. There's no better feeling when you're watching a horror movie than actually feeling the anxiety that the characters are portraying, and yeah, job well done because it it does it in your movie. So, like you said, jump scares are great and they serve their purpose and they have their place. But I'm with you. I would rather. I don't like having anxiety, but when I'm watching a horror movie, I love it. I think that's how you're supposed to feel when you're watching a horror movie. Is you're supposed to feel uneasy. You know, it's supposed to be an unsettling experience because it's to me that's what horror is. You know,
And there's so many different types, right? Like I'm of a mind where it's better to have an empathetic response to a horror movie. I think if you don't, you might I don't know, that could be kind of strange if you just enjoy watching someone get hacked to bits. I don't mean to judge those people because they may come after me. But I think it's more interesting if you are feeling things and having reactions to this. If you're horror movies should just generate tons of empathy and make you feel like you're concerned for somebody's well-being. Like that's a cool thing to actually have a 2D image elicit. It's the same thing as comedy, right? Like comedy makes you laugh, horror makes you care. That's pretty powerful.
Horror makes you care. All right, I like that.
It should. I mean, that's how I feel about it. Like,
sure, yeah.
There's other things. Like, what about horror comedies? Like, there's just a million ways you could spiral this conversation. And the problem, you're talking about people hating on movies. It's people have very narrow lenses of analysis, and that goes well beyond film. People tend to look at things quite binary. Is it good? Is it bad? Like, is that interesting? I'd say no, but fuck it. That's what people talk about on the internet.
Right. Agreed. All right, man. Well, last question, then I'll let you go. I won't take up any more of your time. But someone such as yourself who has a very lengthy, list of credits, 20 years plus experience, what would you say would be the best piece of advice you could give new filmmakers, thinking about it or having already started, but someone who, say someone comes to you and says, I've got, $1,000 in my bank account right now that I want to make a movie out of it. What advice would you give that person?
Probably to talk to someone more successful than me. Got to be a better way. I guess to think about your process a lot and don't just think about the what, but think about the how. Because the more you think about how, you can kind of get there. And what I mean by how, it's like, well, how do you write it? You're stuck writing your screenplay. It's your first movie. You're stressed out, and you keep doing it at the same time. You work a 9 to 5, and let's just say you've got from 7 to 8 to write for 1 hour a day. Get to a different location. Go write in the park. Go write not in the living room or however you do it. Whatever. Just shake it up. And if you're always looking at ways to change up your process and to work better, it's going to impact the overall quality of the project. Like a lot of making film is unfortunately making mistakes. And I think the more aware of your mistakes and honest with yourself you are, the more you can adjust to and do them differently next time.
Okay.
You say 20 years, man. I mean, I fucked up a lot. I made a lot of bad movies, a lot of short films that don't make sense. So many projects for other people that I worked on as a post-production artist allows me inside information. I can see why their movies don't work because I'm constantly working on them,
Right.
So it's just part of it. Fuck up and do it again.
Okay. That's solid advice, man. It really is. I mean, aside from, the comic relief for the fuck up and do it again, that was funny, but there's some truth to that though. Like that's kind of how the process goes. So I appreciate that advice, and I'm sure any one of my 4 listeners will probably appreciate that advice as well. Because you say ask someone who's more successful than you, but to stick around in the business for 20 years, you've got a full feature movie, you've got tons of shorts, you've got a huge list of credits as a visual effects artist. That's pretty successful, man. So like in my book, that's super successful, and it's something that I definitely look up to. So
well, that's nice to hear. It's honestly, let's just always keep perspective on what we're doing, because there are levels to this shit, and I recognize where I am, and I think if everyone is honest with themselves, they can do what they can to make a better movie next time, because that's all you can try to do.
Yep,
I will continue to try again, and that's the best I got for anything.
Okay. I hope you do. I hope you keep trying and keep doing, because like I said, with this one you took a very courageous swing and knocked it out of the park with that swing. So I wish you all the best, all the success. I really do. it was great to meet you.
You too, Dustin. If I can ever help, or if you ever have questions or want to bounce ideas around, I'm always. This is what I do. I talk about movies and I try to keep making them.
Well, I appreciate that, and I will definitely take you up on that. And if I get to the point where I'm like bugging you, just tell me, because I have a million questions. Like I said, I'm new to this. I have a no budget movie out there that is, it's whatever. I want to keep trying and fucking up and doing again and making better decisions with each film. So I definitely will take you up on that and hit you up for some advice at some time.
Yeah, man. Anytime.
All right, cool. Well, thanks again, Dan. I really appreciate you, taking the time to come chat with me and talk about your movie and some of your past work and future plans. And if you do get Ethan Hawke for anything, then please let me know, because that would be.
I'm sure everyone will know, because
Yeah.
it'll be Ethan Hawke and there will be incentive for the world to talk about my movies.
All right, man. Yep. Thanks again. You have a good night. Okay.
Yeah. Take care, Dustin. Thank you.
All right. Yep. Bye-bye.